All right, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Sunday Wire. I'm your host, Patrick Henningsen. We're streaming out live on the Alternate Current Radio Network and also at 21stCenturyWire.com. Thank you so much for joining us. We're back in this segment. Now, before I introduce our next guest who's waiting in the wings, I want to bring your attention on the show page at 21st Century Wire, and also you can look up at Shout on our menu. Have your shout. Our shout poll this week is, and this is an important poll, I want everyone to get in and vote. If you haven't done already, there's a link on the show page just below the description of the show, and also at our main menu at 21stCenturyWire.com. This week's shout poll is, should the White Helmets receive a Nobel Peace Prize in 2016? Very important poll. I believe it's October 7th. They'll be announcing the Nobel Peace Prize in Oslo, Norway. And one of the nominees is an NGO, which I use that term very loosely, more of a pseudo-NGO called the White Helmets, who's financed by the U.S. State Department via USAID, and also the British Foreign Office, the European Union, and a few other countries and NATO member states. And also, people have actually donated money, believe it or not, their own money, members of the public, to this U.S. government, UK government funded operation, basically, which is actually based in Turkey and not Syria, but produces a lot of imagery that's used to sell an escalation of the war in Syria, is used to sell the concept of a no-fly zone. And Vanessa Beeley at 21st Century Wire, she's got a great statement which she's put up on our website right now. The alternative Nobel Peace Prize 10 days ago was awarded to the White Helmets. It's called the Right to Life Award, I believe, or Right to Livelihood. And this was, they're from Sweden, this organization. And Vanessa, wrote a great letter to them asking that they review that award and look at the evidence. Whether they will or not is another question, because it's quite embarrassing if they're giving an award to a group of an organization that's funded by the West and that has links to terrorist groups in Syria. That's quite an embarrassment. So we don't think we'll get a reply on that. If we do, we'll be surprised. But anyway, that's the poll this week. So far, it's definitely the majority of people have said no so far. I think we've had over 1,000 votes on this poll and many, many comments, dozens and dozens of comments. So I believe that's so far an overwhelming majority says no. So if you want to have your shout on this issue, get in there and vote. The deadline's coming up soon, so you want to get your votes and comments in on our shout widget, which you can comment, vote, and share on Facebook and Twitter, all in one. Fantastic tool for engagement. Now, our next guest, we're very fortunate to have our next guest. She's an award-winning entrepreneur and architect, and she also is a parliamentary member in Syria, of the Syrian Republic. And her name is Maria Sa'adeh, and she's joining us from Damascus. Hello, Maria.
Hello.
Hello, how are you today? Thank you for joining us. We really appreciate your time.
Thank you for you and for this opportunity to open the door for me to speak a little bit about Syria and the situation here.
Yes. We've had a number of guests on from Damascus, different people who do different things in life, different walks of life, different roles they're playing in society, as it were. And you're one of the first government affiliated people that we've had on. And I wanted to just get started. Just tell us a little bit about yourself, Maria. What are you doing right now? What's your background? Where you were born and so forth, and then we'll just get to know you a little bit, and then I want to talk about in your view, how did this situation in Syria begin, the current crisis that started in 2010, 2011. But go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay, simply I'm a Syrian independent woman. I was a parliamentarian during the war from 2012 till 2016. And in basic, I'm an architect specialized in conservation and restoration of old monuments and sites, and also in contemporary design. I have my company of architecture, and also I was teaching in the university for 10 years in the Faculty of Architecture. I was working as an expert for the old monument and sites. And when the war started, I just felt that I'm involved and I'm responsible to do something for my country, because that maybe I can analyze better the situation, I can read and I can express the society. I'm well connected with all level of societies, and that I felt that I have something to do, and that's why I was involved in that, and I became into the parliament.
And tell us, from your perspective, I'd like to talk later as well about your area of expertise, because I think it's very relevant also in this conversation with some of the damage, and not just Palmyra, Aleppo, and some of the ruins and the things that have been lost or damaged as a result of this war. And we'll talk about that a little bit later, Maria. Yeah. But to begin with, from your view, Maria, from your understanding, how did this situation in Syria begin in 2011? And also, did anything important happen before that which helped to cause this crisis, or that might have led to this crisis?
I can also ask a question with the same. He can also reply to the same sentence. So, why the war started in Libya? Why the war started in Iraq? Why they tried to provoke something in Egypt? Why the war started in Yemen? So, is that can help to understand what's happened in the area?
Definitely.
So I think, because I think it's not about civilians or a problem between regime and their people. It's not about the internal facts in the state. So it's about outside intervention in the area. So I was following all what happened in Iraq, the war in Iraq from the beginning, as a citizen, because I'm not involving in politics before. That hurt me a lot when I saw everything happen to the people in Iraq, and especially to the president of Iraq. Maybe I don't like him, maybe he is dictator, maybe whatever, but he is the president of the state. So I saw the beginning of the crisis in Syria. It became the same tragedia and the same example and the same pretext maybe. And that's what pushed me to do something and to say it's enough. I wasn't involved in politics before, but what happened in my country and in between the Syrian people, that give me the responsibility to speak and to do some initiatives for the young people maybe, because I saw that the young people, it was the tools. Just me explain you an idea. If we want to divide the land, we have to divide societies before. So that means we have to create problems between people, or between the circle of societies. And that's what happened in the beginning in Syria. They try to create and to create two poles, two parts fighting between each other. So they create. They based on the factor of with and against the regime, maybe in the laïc society, and they also create provoke problems between sects. Shiite against Sunnite, Sunnite against Alawite, Muslim against Christian, etc. Where Syria, it wasn't like that before. Even now, the majority, they resist against these ideas and against this weakness. Also, to continue with that way, we should attack the history. And the history, it's not just the material history and heritage which exists everywhere in Syria, but it's what we hold in our culture. So we have to make a changing in demography, and changing demography that needs something bigger. So that need to create terrorism. And that's what we arrived today in Syria. It's a big terrorism. So we should terror people to displace from their place and to destroy their houses, their homeland, and to make troubles and to change completely the history. And maybe that help if I can tell you that all history, all schools in the zone of Daesh, they stopped learn history in their school.
That's interesting. So basically, what you're describing there. So in the Daesh and religious extremist territories, they stopped teaching history in school. So they're creating year zero, right? So history begins now, right?
Exactly.
So,
exactly.
And this has been, Maria, this is not the first time we've seen this in the world. This was also done in Cambodia. This was also done in the Pol Pot era of Cambodia, and also Mao Zedong, the Cultural Revolution in China.
Exactly.
Year zero was implemented. So people were meant, it's kind of a brainwashing exercise.
Exactly. That's what I wanted to tell you. It's a brainwashing for people. So that then they can create their own state, but with our brain and with our land and with what we teach them. So they will be a tools for us who, that's mean who control the war. Mm-hmm. And we know today it's very obvious that, and I'm sorry that to say, there is a state member in the UN, they don't respect at all the minimum of the UN chart, and they make a coalition under the name fighting against the terrorism, but they are really fighting against Syrian people and against Syrian state when Syria has its sovereignty.
Well, I think you're talking about the United States, and we covered this and before I connected you the first half hour. I really went into detail about the leaked audio which John Kerry was caught on tape. This was released, and he really makes the intentions of the United States government makes them quite open, is to arming terrorists, training terrorists, and their first wish is to have a military confrontation and not a diplomatic one. No political solution, no diplomacy, but force. And this is the real intention of the United States government, which has been revealed by John Kerry, this Secretary of State. So, we're in a situation now, Maria, and I don't know. I know that you in Syria, people there already know this. They've known this for a long time, but the people of the West, in America, in Europe, Western Europe, are very slow to realizing the enormity of this situation and the level of corruption that really corrupts the United Nations as an organization, in my opinion. It's gotten so bad right now, and I don't know if there's any chance of reform for the UN at the present rate. I don't think. I mean, what are your thoughts about the United Nations? Because I see your representative Jafari there, who's very dignified, who is very open, who is very honest, giving his speaking for his country, and he's absolutely not respected at all by the U.S. media or the U.S. political establishment.
Patrick, let me tell you something. It's all today about trust. It's the trust between people and their government, and the trust between people in all of the world and the UN. It's about trust between states under each other. It's about trust. So the trust, it's not exist today in everywhere. But we built as a Syrian people because we suffered from this situation and from this feeling. We built our trust with our government and with our Syrian army, because the only part who can defend our existence is the Syrian army. And I feel really so sorry. Before continuing to the UN, about UN, I feel so sorry to say, to hear Patrick Cockburn saying that yes, that the attack on Syrian army was a mistake, that happened in Deir ez-Zor, in the airport of Deir ez-Zor. So what is mistake? The US can do mistake in some place with this high technique system and all the NATO system. So how they can do mistake?
Well, I think they're lying. I don't think it was a mistake, and obviously sure. Most people know that. Sure. Yeah,
for sure. So that's why I told you it's about trust. So how can they intervene in Syria as a coalition against terrorism or fighting against terrorism, and they attack the Syrian army, who is the only part who defend the Syrian people? So it's all about trust. I know that it's also about mistake when they did the war against Iraq for 15 years. They attack Iraq, starting under the pretext to finding the weapon of mass destruction. And after 15 years, they retired from Iraq, saying it was a false report. So after 15 years, after destroying Iraq, after a big demography of Iraq doesn't still as a state, as a strong state. They broke the military of Iraq. So they broke all the factor of the state, and then they said, yes, it was a mistake.
Yeah, and then they're currently Yeah,
I'm sorry, Patrick, but going to the UN, so also we hope that UN can do something, but I don't know after how many years they try to do something for the people, and we saw states fall down one after one. So and we saw also the demographic changes in all of the world. So where is the UN, and where is the right of the people, and where is the peace, and where is respecting of the UN chart?
Yes, and that's a good question. I think the UN has to ask itself that question, and right now it doesn't look like a very good answer.
I'm sorry, Patrick, to disturb you, but I just remember one thing. If we saw all what happened by Turkey against Syria, all how they using their territory to make practice for the fighters and for the terrorist fighters, and how they make the airstrike directly, and how they manage the war, and they help terrorist group in Syrian land, and they attack our land. And the UN Secretary General, they named Turkey, the ambassador, the Turkish ambassador in the UN, who the responsible to make the plan against terrorism. So this is double standards. This is the double standards.
Well, It's almost as bad as Saudi Arabia being the chair of the UN Human Rights Council.
Exactly. And they also give Saudi Arabia also, I don't remember how many $1 million to direct a center against terrorism, to make a study against terrorism for 3 years based in Washington.
Yes.
So and they also named, I think, the Qatari ambassador in the UN, who is responsible about the culture and the civilization culture, I think, in the world, and so it's a double standard. When we hear that, how we can trust with the UN?
Yeah, I know. With all the talk of democracies and freedom and all this, they're putting monarchs, basically feudal, autocratic theological monarchs from Qatar or Saudi Arabia in charge of anything in the UN. I think is ridiculous. What are the sort of principles of this organization? What I think it's just been completely paid for it's been corrupted by money, quite frankly, and influence. But getting back to your original point, I agree with your analysis there. I think many people do, and do you get a chance to see any of the Western media coverage regarding Syria? Because according to the Western media, Syria had elections early this year. They had also a presidential election in 2014, which you've seen all these things up close, and they're saying all the elections are illegitimate. The presidential election was illegitimate. They laugh at the elections here. They say that they're frauds and all the rest of it. No one came out to vote for the president or anything like this. That's how it's covered in the Western media. So they've delegitimized Syrian society, Syrian democracy, Syrian republic, in fact, through this demonization even of your elections. How do you feel about that? And just tell us about your experience, in government and with the elections.
You mean first the presidential election?
Yes.
Maybe it's not about my reply or some words, but we have just to see what's called opposition in Beirut. How thousands of them came to the embassy just to vote for their president. This is the only or the first. It's really the first point that we can base on. So how we can say nobody go to vote for the president? If first I get also a lot of contact from Syrians outside of Syria. They ask the countries that they have the right to vote for their president, and they should open the embassy for them, or they should open boxes for vote for them in somewhere or one place in Europe. And all governments in Europe, they refuse to do that. And we have a lot of example and a lot of samples. So it's today it's obvious, because it's not about the president Bashar al-Assad, because first maybe it was the president of Syria, but today after 5 years in Syria of war, and he can manage that, and he can protect till now Syria from terrorist group. He managed the war, and he protect the maximum of Syrians. Because also, if we based on the Western media, we should say that Syrians, or the majority of Syrians today, which displaced from the zone of Daesh, they displaced to the zone under control of government because they feel safe, because they search for their safety and security under the control of government and the Syrian state. And that's why we feel protected in our state and which guarantee our existence, not in the zone of terrorism, which is supported by Western states.
Mm. And so also just a run on to that as well. Did you have any thoughts or feelings about, do you get to see the Gulf media coverage? Because we see Al Jazeera, which is based in Doha in Qatar. We see a lot of their reports on Syria, and they're very twisted in the same way that they were about Libya, and also in trying to basically paint the Syrian conflict as something that came from the Arab Spring, that it was the peaceful protesters came up, and this is the sort of standard Al Jazeera narrative for the story of Syria and the Syrian war, and they call it a civil war and so forth. Do you get a chance, firstly, to what do you think about Al Jazeera? I know they're all over the Arab world, but also now in Europe and America. But how do you feel about that, and how much influence did the Gulf media organizations have in painting public opinion about Syria?
Really, I say it's shame really that those of this media is involved in this crime and in this war. They helping and giving pretext, giving they reflect the opposite situation. They reflect a fake situation, and they give the right to this crime and to killing people. They give all pretext for this war against the state and against society, because this war, it's not against regimes. It's not about spring, Arabic Spring. It's about really attacking state and attacking people. So they are implicated with this blood.
And I know they pump it's millions and millions of dollars, per month, go into this operation. I think more money has been spent on anti-Syrian. Yeah.
I'm sorry. It's just I wanted to tell you about if we remember the child when they present how he was died in the border in the Turkey in the sea of Turkey, because
the Alan Kurdi,
Alan.
Yeah,
yes.
Alan Kurdi. Yes. This was the boy who was the face of the migrant crisis for Europe.
Exactly. Just we need to compare the situation. It's all government and all Western states meet after this announcement and after all the media, what they said about this this child, and how they reflect the situation after 5 years of war in Syria, when all Syrians inside Syria was killing wherever they was in the zone of state or in the zone of Daesh, wherever it is, it's a child. They was killing during 5 years of war in Syria. No media reflects what's happened. And I know how many schools was attacking directly, and I was going from 1-to-1 when that happened in Syria in 2013, and I was working on that, and I make all reports about how many kids just in Damascus under the attack of the terrorist group, how many kids was killing during their lessons in the school. Nobody talk about them. So this is the double standards, and this is the Western media when they don't reflect that. And I was in Italy, I was speaking about that, and nobody heard about that there. So, and also we didn't, they blocked our visa. The first 3 years, even till now, to going to Europe, maybe to not reflect this situation. So it's all channels was interrupted, and they stopped all communication with the Syrian people inside Syria. So they don't want to reflect what's happened in reality. They just want to use one child, and it was fabricate a story and fabricate event just to make something to provoke in Europe and to meet many presidents of Europe and to say maybe that to create something against Syria again.
Well, our own president in this country, President Barack Obama, when the little dusty boy Omran in Aleppo, when that picture was presented 1 month ago to the media, and it went everywhere, and they said this reminds us of Alan Kurdi, so there becomes this progression, this gestalt of child victims, and the Omran picture we're pretty certain was staged by the Aleppo Media Center, which is a Western-funded media outlet in the terrorist-held East Aleppo, based there, but also with the white helmets as well. And so, this is our president also playing this game. He's playing on this game, and I know it's probably difficult for him to comprehend what propaganda means, seeing that he's right in the middle of the propaganda machine, or maybe he does know what it means and he's playing along with the game. Either way, these are adults in positions of power who aren't thinking for themselves, who are just robotically repeating what's on the cover of the newspapers or what's running on CNN, and then the white helmets up for a Nobel Peace Prize, and this is an organization again funded by the West. To produce images, basically. I don't know if you've seen this outfit, the white helmets. It's absolutely incredible. The stuff, the videos they put out, the photos. We have a couple of the videos on our website, and it's almost a joke. It almost looks like a comedy film.
Exactly.
Exactly. So bad.
And the same about Charlie. All we are Charlie.
Yes.
Oui, je suis Charlie en France.
Je suis Charlie. Yeah.
Oui, je suis Charlie, et personne ne dit je suis Syrien.
Yeah, wait, Nicole.
Yes, so nobody said, yes, I'm Syrian or I am Syria. So it's just about some story, a fake story and false story in the media. So they play with the existence of people in the world.
Yes. Yeah. Well, this is a marketing. This is the humanitarian. It's marketing the idea of humanitarian intervention, and it is very insidious. It's very difficult to counter because it uses the political cover of the traditional left wing, if you will, in the West, in order to pass it through without any criticism. And if you do criticize it, then you were attacked in the West as being insensitive to the children, basically. So this is how the dynamic works. But yet this is how they are promoting war. And I really we've covered it.
They promoting war. They provoke the war also. Because I remember also a story. I was driving in a place. Abbasiyin on 2012 or 2011 in the beginning of the crisis, when the Western media they talk about some manifestation or some attack in this place, and someone from UK, a friend in London, he called me directly on the phone, and he told me, Maria, are you okay? It's next to your home, etc. No, I told him, no, I'm driving in this, there is nothing happened. So, and they said there is something against the regime, and in reality, there is not. So, in this way, they provoke problems and they provoke manifestation. And also, I know that they paid a lot for the people who go for the manifestation. And as an architect, I had a lot of workers who left their work because they take more. In 1 hour of manifestation, they take more than working 1 day in the chantier.
And when you say manifestation, you mean protest. I know in France.
Okay. Manifestation in French. I'm sorry for my English anyway.
No, that's okay. Yeah. Manifestation. So the manifestation is the protest, like the so-called Arab Spring type opposition protest. Yeah. So you had paid protesters, because we have them in America as well. They do pay them as well here. Sometimes this is a George Soros sort of technique. But so you have that in Syria, really. And so what would the average salary be in Syria, and how much would they pay the protester per day?
It's one work day for the workers. They paid for 1 hour to protest.
Wow. Okay. So it's a good career protesting, really, with that sort of pay.
Yes, but when they finished, so they come back to work and they don't see anything. So it's also about, and maybe we have to speak also about sanctions, what's called sanctions, because they try to broke the economical life in Syria under the name of sanctions, which is the same effect of terrorism. And terrorist effect, because it's I called it's a terrorist economical terrorism.
Well, and go ahead.
No, because I made a study and with the numbers, and I did a conference on 2015 in the UN in Geneva. Under the name of terrorist economical terrorism. So I make a comparison between the effect of sanctions and the effect of terrorism. So in all sector of the state, so I study the damage in all sector of the state came from both sides. So what's mean? For example, the hospitals. The hospitals which was attacked by the terrorist group, which destroyed, it's the same number of hospitals and medical centers which is closed because there is no medical material, no petrol, no raw material, so all of this. No maintenance even. So this is what's happened. It's only for, I give you just one example. That 50% of the primary school was stopped to learn because they displaced. There is a damage in their school. The school was a place for the refugee and all of them. So it's very complicated. If we more than 450 of historical site was destroyed in Syria, and they peeled the historical and archaeological pieces, and they sold through the mafia of Turkey to the Western states also. So the state who said they want to fight against terrorism in Syria, they are a partnership with them because they peeled the petrol, they peeled the archaeological pieces from Syria, they peeled all resources, they stole these resources, and they are partner with them in selling petrol for the outside and in selling archaeological pieces. And they are the same who make the sanctions against regime, but in reality it was against Syrian people.
Yeah, and this is how they sell these sanctions. I'm glad you brought that up, because this is really important. They sell the sanctions. This is seen as a solution to humanitarian disasters around the world. They say we need to impose sanctions and more sanctions. They claim the sanctions are against the regime or the president, but they're really against the people. The sanctions are collective. They're punishing the people of Syria, and I think we saw this in Iraq to a horrible degree, and I think in Syria this is also happening. Is it true, Maria, that the sanctions cause more refugees to leave, maybe than the terrorists?
For sure. First of all, it's a coercive measures, unilateral. It's not a sanctions because it's a violation of the UN Charter. It's not came from the Security Council. So it's only by deciding some of the states deciding to do this sanction against Syria. And this is a big violation of the UN Charter and the international law. And what's happened with the Syrian society, just let me read for you some numbers. It's, for example, the chômage arrived in 2014 to the 50% when it was in 2010 8.6%. The poverty arrived till 75% when it was not more than 9% before. The primary education decreased to 50%. The number of hospital factories was closed because of what I told you, the shortage of raw material, oil, and all of that. So we have a lot of numbers. If I can, we have to speak because it's a big document with a with a lot of numbers and documentation of what's happened, and a complete study for each sector in Syria.
Well, if you have that document, we'll after the show we'll get a hold of this and we'll try to repost it on our website so people can read it and study it for themselves. If it's in English, we'll put it up at 21st Century Wire. But yeah, I think it's the case that you've made, I think, is very conclusive, and this is the number one weapon. This is one of the main causes of the migrant crisis. They're selling in the West, they sell the idea of this migrant crisis in Europe as because they say it's because of ISIS and it's because of Assad. These are the main the reasons why they sell the migrant crisis. And then they use Al Kurdi, the child image, to punctuate this in the need to act and do something. This is how the system works in the West. But sanctions are the most important part of this, in my opinion, because I think that the sanctions are the thing that is destabilizing the country more as much as anything, equal to terrorism. You have a very strong case there, Maria. But just quickly, the other thing I wanted to ask you that I think is an important question here, looking after the war, I looked at what's happening in Iraq, and this endless suicide bombs, endless sectarian warfare. Does Syria, if the situation stabilizes in Syria, will they have this problem of the continued injection of terrorism in the form of suicide bombs and so forth? Is this a problem, or is the sectarian issue of Iraq, will that be transferred to Syria, or is Syria have a different characteristic than Iraq?
We can talk when we talk about sectarian and sects. So we create the problem. So when we, for example, create some conferences outside for Christians, or for minorities, or for whatever, for Kurds, so we create, we attire this group to do something altogether. So the problem was provoked in Iraq, and they get success, I think, in Iraq to provoke this problem and to broke the Iraqi tissue there. But in Syria, for sure, the situation is different. Maybe some of people try to make some groups under the name of sects, but it's not who represent the Syrian people. It's not the majority. It's only a small part of them paid from the US, like the small group of Al-Kurd who exist in the north of Syria, paid by the US, and they try to said that we want to do our state or our independence, when in the history of Syria a lot of very good personality from the Syrian Kurds was in the high level in the state, represent the state, and they speak as a national person, not as a sectarian person. And the most important proof, it's me. I am Syrian, I am independent, I'm not related with any parties, political parties, and I'm a Christian, but I don't represent Christian in the parliament. I represent all Syrian. And when I had my electoral campaign, I had 200 of young people, of volunteer. It was the first time when we face that case in Syria and in the Arabic world. It's 200% of volunteer. They want to support me in my electoral campaign. And the majority of them, they was Muslim. They wasn't Christian. So, and the constitution in Syria, it's fair for all Syrians. We don't talk about sects and minorities because we don't believe even in something named or called minorities. So the so-called minorities, it's a term imported from Western states. It's not in our culture and it's not in our history, because we all citizens here in the state. This is what means state, dear. And when I worked for 4 years in the parliament, I worked for all Syrians. Even I don't work for only the Damascus people. I work for all Syrians in all Syria. I was communicated with the Syrian even outside of Syria. And we did a lot of projects all together. So this situation, it's not exist in Syria, but it is provoked and paid from the outside countries, from the outside part who want to provoke this problem in Syria. And shame, they launched a lot of conferences in Europe, in America, and I don't know where also, but they launched a lot of conference under the name or under the title of sectarianism or Christians or Kurd or whatever, when it's completely wrong.
And so one of these conferences, I heard that you attended one of these conferences, and there was a woman claiming to be from Syria. It might have been a European conference, maybe, and they were promoting the Islamic State so-called democracy, and I think you challenged them at that conference. This is what my colleague had asked me to ask you a question about this.
Religion, it's not a state. If we want to build a state, The state, it's when all citizen in this land, wherever, from which sect, from which religion, from which ethnic they came, but they are a citizen in this state, all equal. And that's what we do in Syria. We are all equal. Tell me.
No, so, and what do you think? What's your view then? I mean, you've served in government, in your country. What is your view of the Syrian opposition, which is in London? You see them in Washington. I see them in New York. I see them in Paris. I see them in London, and Basma Komadi and all these other so-called Syrian opposition. The U.S. and London and France trying to put together the Syrian government in Europe, basically, and then have them somehow come in and take over in Damascus. I mean, how do Syrians view this so-called opposition in Europe? When do these people go to Syria very often, or are they Europeans, or how is this viewed by the Syrians, or do they not even know who they are?
Yeah. I call them prefabricated opposition, because opposition, it's another meaning first. Opposition, it's a structure. You should work under the state, not against the state. You should have your plan. You should have your system, not to fall down the regime. It's not that the aims of the opposition. The opposition should work to get the power, or to realize a system, economical system, political system, social system, whatever, but they should make an effect in the state and in the direction of the state, and they should have an accumulated work in politics, an historical work in politics. What's happened in Syria from the beginning is to prefabricate this opposition. I know I respect all opposition as an individual if they don't like or if they don't agree with the regime for some points. Okay, all of us, maybe we have a lot of points when we don't agree with not only our regime in every state. It's the situation is the same, but to collaborate or not to collaborate, or to be used as a tools by the Western state, by the outside state, and to have money and to work under their agenda to attack our state. This is not opposition. So they are tools just used for this period.
And also, talking about opposition, our government refers to Al-Nusra Front, Ahrar al-Sham, Jaish al-Islam, and
they
call them opposition. They call them the opposition, is what they call them.
Yes, because they play with for the public opinion. They play with the terms and with the titles and what they called. But we can call all terrorism as an opposition, like what the United States do. And we should be more clever. And today, I think all of the world, they understand what's happened, and all of the world, they understand the game, this dirty game, because also there is many decision in the UN and in the Security Council, which lists a lot of names of terrorist group like Al-Nusra, ISIS. All of them, they came from Al-Qaeda, and they said also all branches came from them or related with them or worked with them. It's all also terrorist group. So, or terrorist organization, because today it's a big organization, doesn't attack Syria. It attacks all of the world and all of the states. So if we just want to minimize the effect of this organization and to call the opposition, just to give the pretext of their self to send arms and to support them, to support them with logistical support, financial support, military support, all of kind of support, just to attack. It's a war by proxy. It's a proxy war. It's so they use those organizations and they said we will fight against terrorism. And when they want to send arms, they said it's armed opposition.
Yes, yeah. So we've broken that down and in great detail in our work here on this program and also at 21st Century Wire. And I do think people are starting to slowly understand the scale of this in Syria eventually. But, you know, one of the last things I wanted to talk to you about, we've got a few minutes left in this segment, but, you know, your expertise as an architect, your expertise as a planner and an engineer, and looking at the destruction of, you know, one of the greatest cities in the world, maybe historical cities, is the city of Aleppo, and also looking at Palmyra as well. You know, is it possible to rebuild or to restore Aleppo when the fighting finishes? I mean, and is this something that you're very interested in surveying? Is this something that you want to be involved in, helping that process? What are your thoughts about this, and what are some of the problems that are involved in that situation?
History, it's as a heritage accumulated through many centuries. And history, it's also in our culture, our accumulated civilization, which bear it in our generations. So they attack both. They attack the history. They destroyed all material history on the Syrian land, and they attack the Syrian societies, which guarantee to save the culture for the generations, which guarantee to save the memory of sites, because when we the only who guarantee our existence is the state, and who guarantee our culture is ourself, is the people, the society who bear it. And what happened in Syria, they try to destroy all the history and the memory of the place in our memories and for the future. So, and I was also on 2014 in UNESCO in France. I'm trying to assisting a conference, a big conference, talked about the Syrian and Iraqi heritage, and I didn't find a Syrian responsible was invited to talk about Syria, and that's what surprised me.
Wow.
So I asked to go to this conference, and when I want to speak about my responsibility or my double responsibility as an architect specialist in restoration of the old monument and site, and my other responsibility as a parliamentarian to protect my society and the social tissue and what he has from culture and history, and they tried to not let me talk. They tried to not give me the mic. So this is exactly the message that I want to reflect to you, to tell you that it's all about reflecting something and talking under a lot of many nice titles like protecting civilians, protecting Syrian people, protecting the history or the heritage in Syria, protecting women, protecting whatever. So all about protecting is the concept of protection, but in reality, what's existing is destroying everything in Syria. And till now, I tell you that I am proud with the Syrian people. I'm proud with the society because they resist, and they not only resist, they try to work, and they improve their work during 5 years with the military, with the society, for the humanitarian aid from Syria, not from outside. So they try to do all the best and all the effort to help Syrians by Syrians.
Wow. And, just back to that's a great rundown you just gave us there. Fantastic. One of the things, and just back on the architectural side, one of the things I noticed in Beirut, when I was in Beirut, I was doing research on this subject, as well. And I was looking at who was financing the rebuilding of Beirut after the war. After the 20-year war, most of the money, I looked at the money for the new developments, all these tower blocks coming up, all these glass buildings in Beirut, all from the Gulf, from Saudi Arabia, from Damak, and all these companies, from the UAE, from Qatar. And so this is where the money is coming from afterwards, and the destruction of Roman walls, of Byzantine, Roman, Greek, even Egyptian, even some Phoenician, is being destroyed under the surface to build all of these buildings that most of them are empty. People don't, the Gulf tenants only stay there maybe a few weeks a year, and they take up all the space on top of all the heritage in Lebanon. It's destroyed. It's gone. And so is there an agenda? What I'm saying is, do you think there's a bigger agenda by the West and the Gulf states to erase history in the Middle East and to replace it with something else?
For sure. The agenda, we have the example in Lebanon, and we have another example maybe in Iraq, because they try to do something also in Iraq, and so the plan is already used. And I remember exactly because I was studying in Beirut, and I remember the way that they that they destroy all vestige. We say vestige, all the small building from the Byzantine and other centuries, Roman centuries, all they destroyed by trucks. And because they want to build really the whole building and gratte-ciel. So it's shame to destroy the history and to make a brainwash with the society. And this is what trying to do with the Syrians, and especially with the Syrians was outside. And shame that they try to fabricate their own society as the Syrians to resend it again for Syria. And this is really what hurt me, because we need all Syrians to be all together, to rebuild our Syria together, starting from my heart and from our responsibility as a Syrian citizen and not supporting by outside and from the financing from outside.
Yeah, and that's going to be a big challenge in the coming years for Syria. You know, a lot of people, at least myself included, do hope that the war will stop, but it's also the money can come.
Exactly. Just let me tell you, I'm trust with our government that can stop this plan. And that's why we support our state, because the state is the only who guarantee our existence as a Syrian people and as a Syrian society. Maybe we are agree or we are we don't agree about some point, but it's an internal question. It's not outside question. It's not to make any intervention from the state. So we have the decision. We have the right to choose our destiny. We have to choose our president. We have to choose who represent us in the parliament. So the right is for us. And I feel also that hurt me a lot from the beginning of the crisis. And this is one of the reasons who provoked my desire to be in the parliament, to talk in the name of Syrian people, because the intervention of the Western states, especially France, the US, and also the UK, about the opposition. They try to set or they try to call some opposition as a representative of Syrian people. So who designates those? It's our right. It's the right of the Syrian society. And as I was one of the Syrian society, I was shocked. And I wanted to shout that we are Syrian people and we have the right to choose our destiny, our president, and who represent us. So nobody from outside can take this role and can make this violation of our sovereignty.
John Kerry, I hope you're listening to this show because there's some good.
I hope so. Maybe I can pass a big shout, really, because all Syrians, all we want to shout against the media, the Western media and the Western government, and who manage this war and who play with the blood of Syrian people.
Yeah, we will put this clip out, especially we'll amplify this out on social media from this part of the interview because I think it's very important. But Maria, Sa'adeh, thank you so much for joining us this week. We could talk longer, I'm sure, and perhaps we'll have you again for another conversation in the future. But we really appreciate your work and everything that you do. And also, thank you so much for your time this Sunday.
Thank you so much for this opportunity also to pass my voice for the public opinion in all of the world, because our relation or the relation between state, it's based on the relation between people, not based on the government and what's still for the history. It's the relation between people, and that's what we want to rebuild. Yes.
Good words, wise words. And we hope that the people in decision-making positions right now are listening to those words, and we'll amplify those words. Trust me, in the coming weeks and months, there's still a lot of work to do. This is not going to end anytime tomorrow. This is an ongoing process. But Maria, Sa'adeh from Damascus, thank you so much for joining us. And we're going to be wrapping up this segment, but stay tuned after the break, and we're going to do a breakdown analysis of the U.S. elections as it stands right now. You don't want to miss that. You don't want to miss that. We got some real zingers, but we'll be right back after these messages. I'm your host, Patrick Henningsen. This is the Sunday Wire. Stay right there.